Fight Mike here. Today we're going to be discussing Jon Jones' recent retirement that Dana announced after the UFC Baku card that just took place. We'll be discussing the fact that he's relinquished the heavyweight title and Tom Aspinall's finally been promoted to the official heavyweight champion of the world, which is a great ring to it. But I don't know if everyone else has seen Dana White's interview, but he said, Jon Jones called me last night and he said, I'm retired. And that's all he said. That was the reasoning that he gave, that Jon Jones is retired. But I'm 99% sure that that's not what took place. I knew when he said that, I was like, I just don't believe that it took 6.5 months for Jon Jones to realize, hey, I'm retired, after saying it on every podcast that he goes to. So I did a little bit of digging, which didn't take long for me to find any of this out, but Jon Jones has been very recently had some trouble with the law within the last week. According to the Yahoo Sports News, a police officer in Albuquerque was reported to investigate a traffic crash, which of course my quality and display is terrible at the moment. It will be improving at some point, but you may be able to see the little criminal charge details on the screen here. It's not really very useful for me to have it, but the Yahoo Sports News have said that a police officer in Albuquerque was reported to investigate a traffic crash. A woman in the passenger seat, sadly not his wife, it's just some random woman, was very intoxicated and lacked clothing from the waist down. Disgusting from Jon Jones. And she told police that it was Jon Jones that drove the car but fled the scene on foot. She called him whilst with the police, and he appeared heavily intoxicated and made statements implying his capacity to employ lethal force through third parties against the aid, which was the police. So he's then said, paraphrasing from that, he said to the police that he can use lethal force against them, against like whatever they were accusing him of doing. In response to that threat, they called for backup, and another officer stated that he made more allusions to violence to them. When the police interviewed, Jon Jones said that the woman left his house intoxicated earlier in the day and called him after the crash. And Jon claimed that the person who he was speaking on the phone to after speaking to the woman that Jon Jones was in the crash with, Jon said that the officer was unprofessional with their language, which led him to doubt that they were police officers. But seeing Jon's track record, is kind of hard to believe that. The woman said that she drank and consumed alcohol and mushrooms at Jon Jones' house. Another really bad thing for Jon. And her next recollection of all the events was being in the car with Jon and getting into that crash. And keep in mind, Jon also called this lady 13 times from the crash till the next day. So, and all of this happened on Tuesday this week, by the way, so this is really bad timing here. And he will be going to court for this. So, the timing on this was this Tuesday, and now is the time that we're getting the stripping of Jon Jones. It just seems really sus to me. And I almost feel like this comes back to something that that Dana White had been saying to Kevin Iole whilst arguing for pound. I don't know if you remember that press conference, I think it was, maybe after a Dana White Contender Series, where Kevin Iole was talking about how Jon Jones shouldn't be pound for pound number one, and Dana White was saying, he was going red-faced, he was arguing with all the media reporters, saying he was pound for pound. And Dana White was dying on the hill that Jon was pound for pound, but he wouldn't be pound for pound or even the heavyweight champion if he was off somewhere doing crime. And he kept saying this. He said it specifically. He said, if Jon Jones was doing what he was doing a couple of years ago and he was going off and doing drugs and getting in trouble with the law, maybe then he's not the best in the world. So I think Jon Jones has done these things on Tuesday, or had these things happen, and the UFC have been like, oh shit, what have we done? What have we done? We've been saying that this guy is an active champion, all of these different things. And then he does the exact same thing that Dana White said that he would not do. And to be honest, I think the UFC really messed up with this situation, because they were probably waiting for the TV rights deal to be announced to say that Jon Jones wants to fight, and just to be saying until that TV rights deal got announced. But Jon's recently been talking so much in the media that I think he sort of screwed that over. And I think due to that, maybe the UFC were really pushing him, hey, you either need to fight or we're actually not doing this anymore. And John recently said something on the Full Send podcast that I thought was really interesting, that it sort of blew over a lot of people's head. He said, there's a lot of things happening behind the scenes. My job is to sit and be still and take the punishment. And if you remember a few months ago, he also said the UFC already knows his plans. He doesn't know why they haven't acted on it yet. So what I think this is I think that Jon Jones has told them months and months ago that I'm retiring, but you're more than welcome to use my name to get this TV rights deal happening. Because I remember even before the Stipe matchup, people were talking about this TV rights deal. So his manager and him would definitely be aware of that. And I don't think that he cares about being a liked person. So I think that he's somehow cut a deal with Dana White or the UFC, and just to sort of gallivant around the world for 12 months and retire after the TV rights deal had been set. But I think he messed the situation up by getting drunk and going on all these podcasts, saying all the things that he was going to say, doing all the things he was doing, and being drunk, getting drunk every week, doing all these crazy things. And I think that he made that deal with the UFC, said, hey, you can get more money out of me. I'll give you the percentage of whatever I'm doing out in Russia with Nate Diaz or Thailand with Nate Diaz. Doing all of these things, getting paid for it. I think that he's made a deal with the UFC and said, hey, you can take a cut of whatever we're doing. And I'll just take the punishment, because he doesn't care what the fans think. He knows everyone already hates him. So I think he just took all of this punishment that he was going to get willingly, knowing he was just going to get paid more for gallivanting around the world, but it backfired on the UFC because they got neither of these things. They got months of Jon Jones screwing them around, making them look like a sham of a company, and then also having the heavyweight division stagnant and having nothing moved around there, and also not getting this TV rights deal because Jon Jones has screwed it and sort of got himself into another criminal charge. I think that the UFC really messed themselves over here, and I bet he retired so the UFC would just pay him, I bet he retired so the UFC wouldn't strip him, so he could just be like, oh, this was my plan all along. So, and to be honest, I feel like it's not a good thing, obviously, for anyone involved in the situation of the crash and all of that, but I don't think that the UFC would have announced this retirement had this crash not happened. I have this sort of media tour of Jon Jones crashing out not happened. I don't think that this would have occurred. I think we would be waiting for Jon Jones in 2026 being like, oh, the fight's going to happen in March. I swear, he just wants it in Miami. I swear to God. I bet that that's what's happened. So it's almost a good thing that this has happened, so that Tom can get his undisputed title and he can get his career underway. Disgusting, though, that he's gone from UFC 304, to now UFC 317 without having fought, under the illusion he'll get a fight with Jon Jones. It's a really bad look for the heavyweight division. It's a really bad look for the UFC. They're really in a dire stage when it comes to terms of that heavyweight division, because there's been no movement, and the division is just regressing. And even over this, people might not think of this as being much of a big thing, but this period of the last year or so where the heavyweight division has really died out, that's harming the division for 20 years' time. Because throughout that year's period, people that size are now not starting to do MMA and try and get into the heavyweight division, because they see this and they see how everyone's calling the sport a sham and how they're not respecting the skills of heavyweights anymore. So I think this has sort of ruined that division indefinitely. I feel like it's the same thing as the women's bantamweight division when Amanda Nunes was running the ship, and now it's dead. I feel like we've put ourselves in that same position. So let's hope the UFC can recover from that. I'm happy-ish that Tom Aspinall gets the belt, but I would have still preferred a November Madison Square Garden main event. But I'm happy at least that we got the division moving. Let me know what you think of the retirement. Let me know if you think that I'm right and that it's actually tied together with this event that happened on Tuesday this week with the crash. I think it really is. I think that they would have just kept us ringing along on a streak. I think they would have just kept us just following whatever they say. And even then, with the interviews this week, Dana White said we'll move quickly if we can't get it made in the next few weeks. And then 3 days later, it's already moved quickly. So I don't think they were planning this. I think this was all because of Jon Jones' stupid wrongdoing and how he can't keep himself out of trouble. But yeah, let me know what you think of this situation as a whole. Am I correct, or am I just completely reaching for this? But Let me know what you think of the video. Like and subscribe. As always, leave a comment, and I'll catch you in the next video. Peace.